Ram Madhavji, I see many friends at this India Foundation event, and I'm very grateful to be invited to share some thoughts with you at this 7th India Ideas Conclave. I believe this session is on commerce and industry, commerce and trade 2.0. The current multilateral system which governs the, and I see a lot of veterans sitting here who have worked on that system, was essentially designed in the aftermath of the Second World War in order to provide economic stability and growth. And the political system was, of course, designed to ensure that the world is saved from the scourge of another world war. Those institutions, the Bretton Woods Institution, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, and the WTO which followed, I believe served a purpose. Many of us would applaud the economic growth that took place within that framework. But then along came a pandemic which was unlike SARS or Ebola or H1N1. This was a pandemic which reminded you of what happened in the case of the Spanish flu at the beginning of the 20th century. And all talk of free trade, supply lines being opened, and all these transactions anchored in the rule of law suddenly became question marks. Why do I say this? Well, if you built up a health sector which was dependent on certain supply chains, and those supply chains either got disrupted or suddenly disappeared, you had to fend for yourselves. Of course, in India, which had witnessed the dismantling of the vaccine production during the years between 2004 and 14, we had the entrepreneurial skills, political resolve, and the ability to slowly get started on the healthcare sector, and that we ended up producing nearly 2 billion doses of vaccines which were administered to our countrymen almost free of cost, and we exported to the world as good citizens. But other countries were not able to do it. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I believe in our quest for strategic, preferential, and reciprocal trade relationships, and I'm choosing my words very carefully. If you were schooled in the Geneva School of International Trade, and I mean the GATT WTO, then words like reciprocal, preferential, strategic are always circumscribed, because they are supposed to be part, if I extend a concession to you, then both of us have to extend it on an MFN basis to the rest of the world, and so on. But suddenly when, forgive my use of language, when all hell broke loose, you had to fend for yourselves. And therefore, I believe that the endeavor to seek strategic, preferential, and reciprocal trade relationship for the sheer sake of survival in a difficult set of circumstances, whether it is semiconductors, solar panels, vaccines, active pharmaceutical ingredients, and telecom equipment, I think that became something which I personally believe is captured in our spirit of Atma Nirbharta, but is also very central to the economic and trade growth that is taking place now, for which I applaud those who are responsible. The figures I saw yesterday, the increase in foreign direct investment, I believe, is 20 times over the representative period, something like $83, $84 billion, which is, and this is in dollar terms, significant. I just met a colleague who says that he was in Silicon Valley the other day, and there's a lot of interest in India. I'm not surprised. I also believe India today following that pandemic, has emerged as a much stronger player in the international community on international trade and economic exchanges. I believe that the target of a $5 trillion economy by 2025 or a $10 trillion economy by 2030 is not only achievable, but we will get there before time. For those of you who have known me, you can perhaps be a little dismissive and say, this guy is always upbeat, always bullish on India and slightly over-optimistic. No, I have good reason to tell you why I think that. And let me share a few statistics with you on areas which you might think I am reluctant to talk about. Let me talk about energy security for a minute. Do you have any idea how many people go to the petrol bunk every morning to fill up? Just a guess. Let me tell you, 6 crore or 60 million people. 60 million people go to a petrol pump every day to fill up their vehicles, whether two-wheeler, three-wheeler, or four-wheelers. Our daily consumption is 5 million barrels a day, which is 1.8 billion barrels a year. I make the submission to you that in the next 10 to 20 years, India will be the critical driver of demand in the energy sector. That in and of itself is, I think, a strong statement. But if I tell you what the Modi government has done in order to be able to meet that, we have a problem in the short run. I have friends from the United States sitting here. I have others. Let me tell you, a global economy on the basis of $110 a barrel oil is not sustainable. That we are not looking at just inflationary situations. In the United States, 50 years high, steepest fall in living standards in the United Kingdom. Countries around India, I don't like to name countries, but I think they suggest themselves. Sri Lanka, Nepal, other countries, Pakistan, deep trouble. That's not confined to South Asia, other countries. And yet India, thanks to the very strong political leadership and farsightedness of our people, there is no energy shortage here. We are increasing our biofuels blending, where we were at 1.4% when the Modi government came in. And I have some personal knowledge because I was ambassador to Brazil. We have taken it up from 1.4%. I think yesterday we have hit 10% already. And the target of 20% ethanol or biofuel blending, which was our target till 2030, we will achieve it in 2025. Our exploration and production, which in spite of big talk over the last several decades, had remained constant at around 7%. Not many of you know that out of the 3.5 million square kilometers of sediment area, a basin, we were only exploiting, as I said, 6 to 7%. We are taking that to 10, 15% and beyond. We've doubled the oil exploration in the northeast of the country. Yes, these are difficult times, but India will navigate through those difficult times, and India will ensure energy security. I am hesitant to use the word affordability too easily these days because, you know, when petrol prices are what they are. But it is with a degree of confidence that we can say that our refining capacity, which currently is about 250 million tons per annum, is being taken up to 400 million tons per annum before too long. We will not only supply India's needs, we will also supply the needs of a large number of other countries. This, I believe, is Atmanirbharta. Let me also share with you that even when there was a degree of skepticism that Atmanirbharta meant that we were going to be inward-looking, I was one of those who said, listen, you can't be outward-looking till you've sorted out your own internal system of exchanges. And I think we did that reasonably well. So if exports are booming, Mr. Subramaniam and his boss can get the credit, but we all rejoice in that. Equally, let me say that we have developed a certain overall confidence in the system, and that our partners elsewhere If your foreign direct investment in the fiscal year 21-22 have gone up to $84 billion, there is something to be said for that. And equally, I believe, and here I want to choose my words carefully, I still believe, and I'm one of those who says this loud and clear, we are still not fully exploiting that enormous human and economic potential that we possess as a country. And I think we are on the path of being able to do so. I don't want to go over the big ticket policy reforms that have taken place, GST, IBC, asset monetization, labor law reforms, production-linked incentives, the IT service industry having been doubled in size, the fact that the International Monetary Fund forecasts our growth at 8.2% for 22-23, the fact that GST collection in the month of April was 1.68 lakh crores, and that we had record merchandise exports of 38.19 billion, all those speak for themselves. But since I'm in this beautiful city of Bengaluru, I'm a little partial for a number of reasons which are personal. All I can say is that the government's efforts in promoting entrepreneurship, which have been evidenced through the flagship missions, process reform, and ecosystem effects, and for which 16 January has been designated National Startup Day to take startup culture to the far-flung areas of the country. But here the figures are most impressive. Between 2011 and 2014, we created only one unicorn every year. This figure rose from 2015 onwards. We had 4 new unicorns in 2015, 8 new in 2018, 9 new unicorns in 2019, 10 in 2020, and a whopping 44 new unicorns in 2021. Now that is a figure I believe anyone, anywhere in the world could cite with a degree of satisfaction and pointing in a direction where if you get 44 in a year, and the PwC estimates that 50 startups may have the potential to become unicorns in 2020. So there is something out there, a spirit of innovation, a spirit, an entrepreneurial spirit, which I think encapsulates a certain fire in the belly. I don't know whether it's correct for me to cite that as an example. Technology as an enabler. Before 2014, it was impossible to think that the Indian government would embrace innovation in public schemes and mission. I can tell you now with a degree of confidence that the 2 ministries I have the privilege of dealing with, I sometimes have to work a little harder to keep up with the technology we are introducing there. Most of us have dashboards on our tables where we can monitor the project implementation. And I mean, literally with the help of technology, find out how many workers are on site, how many there, what exactly is happening. Now, this was unheard of earlier. The government is not only a facilitator of technology, but the government is a major user. And the government is also putting pressure on itself in order to upgrade technology use. Aadhaar to financial inclusion, to mobile, to broadband, to geotagging. Just now, before coming here, I had the privilege of watching another technology quantum jump potential. And I was very forthright in saying I'd like to see this kind of presentation made to my 2 ministries, both to the OMCs, in other words. In other words, we are ready at any point of time to embrace all the latest that becomes available in innovation and technology. I want to compliment India Foundation for an event of this nature, which brings in not only latest breakthroughs in technology, an event which also facilitates the power of ideas coming from different directions for a cross-fertilization of those ideas to see how technology and those ideas can merge in order to be able to achieve the overall gains that we seek, both as a country for our citizens and as responsible citizens of the world, which we can export outside. You know, I don't know, I think I've probably got a minute to go to there, so I'm going to conclude. I'm a student of history, and I draw valuable lessons from history. One of the lessons I learned was that in the year, some years ago, a Cambridge historian, Angus Maddison, said that India's GDP in the year 1700 or thereabouts represented 27% of global GDP. Yeah. I don't want to take a political pot shot at the phase of colonialism, but the census that the figures we have for 1951 show that that 27% of global share had come down to 3 or 4%. We are up again, but I think I remind myself, and one of my colleagues has written a brilliant book, that whilst we were exporting wheat, by the way, we are still exporting wheat, so let's not have any misunderstanding on that. It's just that when you are in a slight period of turmoil and your open exports can result in, you know, unregulated problems and so we will continue to export wheat, there's no issue. But in the year of the Lord, 1942-43, when all the wheat grown in India was diverted to the war effort by the colonial master, we had a situation during the famine of Bengal where 10 million people died. It was that scorched earth policy which led to very serious position, we can call it a genocide, 10 million people dying. Fortunately, when you are in charge of your own decision making, and that sovereign decision making is in the hands of somebody who has both the political strength, the visionary statesmanship of our present Prime Minister, you will make sure that you will not only grow for the sake of goods and services to be delivered in your own country, but as a responsible member of the international community. And our vaccine story, I think, beautifully encapsulates that. We were able to provide vaccines throughout the world, and we will continue to discharge that responsibility. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop here, and of course, I'd be happy to take a few questions, should you have any.